Hey there, welcome to Healthy TV episode number 69. I'm your host, Dr. John McPhee, and on today's show, we're answering the question, should you be on a low carb diet? The low carb diet craze, it seems that everywhere you look these days, people are talking about the benefits that come from being on a low carb diet. And first of all, I'd love to know if you've ever attempted or followed a low carb diet, perhaps like an Atkins or some kind of really strict paleo processes. If you have, I'd love to know your experience. What was it like? What did you gain from it? Did you experience any benefits? Do you continue to follow it? So just put in the comments below. I'd love to start a conversation here and amongst all the viewers, because my experience is that it can be really beneficial for some people, and it really comes down to two main criteria. And I think I'll start with my conclusion first, just for those of you who are like screening through, is that I think the way we should approach carbohydrates and how much carbohydrate we're eating is really depends. Okay, it's a carb appropriate diet is how I would frame it. And so it comes down to two criteria: quality and context. Now, what do I mean by quality? Quality of the actual types of carbs that you're putting in, because clearly there's a big difference between eating an apple, a nice organic apple, and eating a candy bar, although they may have a similar number of calories coming from carbohydrate. And the second thing is context. The context being, what are your other lifestyle factors? How much activity do you do? How much sleep are you getting? What's your current body composition? What's your current level of immune system function? How well does your body actually process carbohydrates? And all of those things, those two primary criteria, the quality and the context, really lead us to arrive at this, I think, a conclusion that says it depends on the individual and their own choices and the particular context of their life. Now, I want to give you some actionable steps because that's pretty broad. And so what can you choose? How can you act on these two criteria? Now, quality really comes down to making better choices around the type of carbohydrate you're putting in. So this is something that you could start doing tomorrow, regardless of whether you're going to cut calories or not. The type of carbohydrate that you're putting in would be a really good place to start. So instead of choosing to eat like high processed sugar type carbohydrates, eating more foods like fruits and vegetables, root vegetables, squashes, those kinds of things, instead of reaching for the breads and pastas and rice and those kinds of foods that are much higher in simple sugars. Okay, and then that's putting aside all of the junk food, the candy bars and the candies, which are, of course, I think you all know, those are just not healthy. And then as far as the context goes, a good way to look at it is, I just simply boil it down to sleep and activity levels. And so if either of those are skewed, right, if you're not exercising daily, then you definitely want to reduce your carbohydrate intake, so that if you exercise more, you can eat more sugar. You can eat more carbohydrate. Again, making better choices. If you're not exercising, then I would definitely recommend that you reduce the amount of carbohydrates that you're taking in, because what happens in the body when you exceed, right, when you eat more sugar than your body can burn, essentially, that it can utilize in a healthy way, then all of that excess has to be gotten rid of by your body really quickly, because otherwise it's quite toxic. And what it does is it actually gets laid down as fat. This is really I'm simplifying things, but generally speaking, the sugar that you eat that isn't utilized by the body in that short term, it gets converted to fat. And sugar itself, when it gets pushed into fat cells, it actually drives an inflammatory response. And we know that inflammation sits at the root of weight gain, obesity, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, all these chronic illnesses that are plaguing our society. And so you really want to make sure that you're keeping that, how much activity you're doing, and a relevant amount of carbohydrate. Now, I can't give you specific numbers in a simple video, and this is not to be taken as like objective health advice. What I suggest though is that if you have any questions about this, I'm always happy to troubleshoot, and I'm always learning more about this stuff. So you send me a private message if you prefer, or put it in the comments below. I can give you some guidelines, and perhaps we can go through your specific context, and that'll help me to give you some better recommendations. All right, love to hear from you. Until next week, have a great weekend.